Hi everybody, welcome to Deconstructing Unschooling. I'm Amy Milstein and today we're going to be talking about books, resources. So I'm going to try and make this quick. I could talk for a long time because there are a lot of great books out there about homeschooling and unschooling. So this is by no means an exhaustive collection. And it's also in no particular order. I'm actually going to start with the publication that introduced me to unschooling and that I pretty much read from cover to cover every time it came out, and that is Life Learning Magazine. This is edited by Wendy Presnitz. She and her husband Rolf have several magazines, Natural Life Magazine, Life Learning Magazine, and they are now online magazines. These are a couple of articles that I printed out along the way that I loved. You can find them at lifelearningmagazine.com, and this is a great publication. It has all different perspectives. Wendy always writes a letter from the editor that's fantastic. So I really recommend that. That was my first introduction to life learning, as Wendy calls it, and unschooling, and I can't recommend that publication enough. Along those same lines, Wendy has written a few books, one of which I have here, which is Challenging Assumptions in Education. Also highly recommended, really intelligent, great perspective. Her new book, which I believe is available as an ebook, is Living as Though School Didn't Exist. Also really great. So anything that Wendy does, I recommend. But I think for those of you who are maybe curious or maybe are homeschooling and looking to move more toward unschooling, and you don't have time to sit down and just read volumes and volumes of books, Life Learning Magazine is the way to go. So that's my first recommendation. Secondly, we really can't talk about unschooling without talking about John Holt. John Holt was an educator turned school reformer turned homeschooling advocate, and he coined the phrase unschooling in the early 70s when 7-Up was billing itself as the Uncola. So he sort of took a page from that and coined the phrase unschooling for those whose kids learned outside of school and without a particular curriculum. He didn't want people to think of homeschooling as simply school at home. That's not what he was about. And I'm going to show you two of his books. Teach Your Own, the John Holt Book of Homeschooling. This one is a new edition. It has an introduction by Patrick Ferenga. Pat's fantastic. Hi, Pat. Pat runs Holt GWS now since John's death in 1985. Pat kind of took over and has been keeping John's work out there. Something else that they put out that I recommend on their website, which I will link to below this video, is the Growing Without Schooling magazine. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be published as an ebook. Every single edition of Growing Without Schooling is going to be released as an ebook. I helped edit a couple of those for the formatting that they needed to do to put it in ebook form, and these are fantastic. These magazines, I believe, started publishing in the late 70s and went all the way up till the mid to late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And everything is there. Everything is there. There are articles from kids who came from underprivileged homes and who didn't make it in schools, who, had a mentor of some sort and they were basically unschooling themselves. Every question you had or might have comes up in these magazines, and they're so much fun to read. So I really recommend those. Growing Without Schooling, which you can find archived on holtgws.com, and which hopefully is soon to be released in an ebook. Those were John Holt started Growing Without Schooling. Patrick Ferenga kept it going after John's death in 1985. So Teach Your Own, great book. And my other favorite book from John Holt is Escape from Childhood. Now, this is really radical stuff, people, so, brace yourselves. I love it. Everything in it is great. But this was out of print for a long time. This is the brand new print edition. It's also available on ebook form. And this really is about just giving kids rights, that, you know, kids are oppressed in our society, in all facets of society. And so Holt talks about what he would envision as a free world for kids in it, and giving them the rights that he believed and many of us believe they deserve. So these are 2 books that I recommend, along with Growing Without Schooling, found on the website, soon to be an ebook. Then another resource I came across really early is Sandra Dodd. I love Sandra Dodd. I love everything she writes. This is her book, Sandra Dodd's Big Book of Unschooling. And really what this is just a compilation of a bunch of things that are also on her website at sandradodd.com. I like having this book. I like having it in book form. I like being able to flip through and just sort of, you know, I read this all the time, and I've read it before, and it's just always a good reminder. And she also writes very clearly and in a common sense way about what unschooling is and is not. And I love this. I think it's a great resource for everybody who is unschooling, thinking about unschooling, homeschooling, to have in their house, just as a great reminder to pick up any time of the day. So that's another one. Another classic in sort of the unschooling canon that everybody should have on their shelf is Grace Llewellyn's Teenage Liberation Handbook. How to quit school and get a real life and education kind of says it all. This is a great book, probably one of the clearest and best books ever written in unschooling, about unschooling and what it can mean for a child. So I recommend this. Great. Many of you probably know about John Taylor Gatto. His book, Dumbing Us Down, is probably his most popular book and the one everyone knows. My favorite of his, however, is Weapons of Mass Instruction, because it gives you kind of a concise history of public education in our country, why it was created, what its purpose was, and then where it stands today. John was a public school teacher in New York City for 30 years. He sort of infamously retired the year, or quit, I should say, not really retired, but quit the year that he was New York City Teacher of the Year. And the speech that he gave when he accepted that award kind of rocked the room. You can look it up online. I'll try to find the link and post it with this video as well. So Weapons of Mass Instruction, great history lesson, good insights about what really goes on in public schools from a teacher's point of view, and why he now advocates greatly for homeschooling and unschooling. Okay, then 2 newer books, and books that have more to do with college, but are still great resources, I think, for parents, even if your kids are younger, and certainly if your kids are middle school or high school age and you're wondering what they're going to do next. The first one is from my friend Blake Bowles, and it's Better Than College. And this is a great book, and the reason I love this book is that it's practical. It's not just theoretical. It actually gives kids practical things they can do. He kind of looked around and thought, you know, with the costs of college today and everything, it doesn't really make sense for everybody to go to college. Some people, sure, but not everybody, and there are other ways to get a great, well-rounded education. And that's what this is about, and it's a great book. So I recommend this. And along those very same lines is Dale Stevens' recent book, Hacking Your Education. Dale Stevens was the first recipient of the Thiel Fellowship, Peter Thiel, who gives away fellowships to kids who would be going to college but have maybe an entrepreneurial idea or a business idea, and so Thiel gives them $100,000 to develop that idea instead of going to college. So Dale, with his fellowship, he founded Uncollege, and he speaks about learning, self-directed learning, and getting a well-rounded education without college. And also very practical, great for anybody, not just those of college age. So those are the books I'm going to recommend in this episode. I might revisit resources later on. There's so many things out there. There are some great websites for people. This is by no means, like I said, an exhaustive group. But one thing I do want to say also, so that there's no misunderstanding, is while I love these books and I refer to them often, I would say there's not one author here with whom I agree completely. There are some things that they say that in practice in our family don't work. Or there's some things I just don't really agree with. But that doesn't mean these books aren't great and a great resource. And that's one thing I really want to drive home, is that you can love everything John Holt writes without agreeing with every single word he says. There might be some things in Escape from Childhood that you don't agree with. That's okay. That doesn't mean you have to dismiss everything Holt writes. I think sometimes we've gotten too much into this all or nothing attitude about everything, not just unschooling. You know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So I just want to say that, because when you're reading these books, I don't want you to go, oh, I really disagree with this one chapter. Maybe I shouldn't be reading any more of this author. You know, that's not the case. So I hope that you have some time to, if you haven't already, you may already be familiar with all of these books, but if not, I hope you have some time, take some time to check them out. They're very, very worthwhile. So that's it for today, except today I have to send a shout out to those ancient inventors, turns out, ancient inventors of the umbrella. The umbrella is one of those things, the only bad thing actually about the umbrella is that it doesn't come already built into every bag I own, because even though I own all of these, I never seem to have one with me when I need it, like today when it started to rain, resulting in flat hair and all the rest of it. And even though the umbrella was invented in ancient times, some 4,000 years ago, we can also give a shout out to Samuel Fox. He was a Brit and he invented the first steel-ribbed umbrella, which is more like those that we use today. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you next time.